And that's
I'm live. You didn't tell me I was live. That was just a joke with you.
Yeah, well, don't mess with Kitty. She's a cheeky monster. I hope that is the first second of this unplanned quarantine episode, a teeny episode of Tori and Freddy with an interesting story coming out of Tasmania. So I hope that's the start of it. That's hilarious if it is. Freddie, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I could, but I didn't know if I wouldn't know. I was just joking with you because you asked me, "Are you ready?" And I just wanted to give you a taste of ASMR.
Good morning, Emily. How are you? Or good evening, where you are.
Hello, Emily.
Freddie, just a quick update from you while we wait for the punters to start arriving. Day 5 of quarantine for you, is it?
I think. Well, yeah. Day 5 just passed, and it'll be going into day 6.
You need a little you need to like start etching little lines in the woodwork in the house somewhere.
Yeah, I know. Onto the walls, because
like they do on Survivor on the tree trunks.
Yeah, but it's so boring. And here's a quick update that's extremely frustrating, and apparently they're doing the same thing in parts of the US. Is they want you to have papers. They want you to fill out a piece of paper that says what you're doing. I don't understand the point of that. I mean, it's completely ridiculous, and it just gives them a reason to police people. It gives a lot of people a bad taste in their mouth, because I know a lot of people are like, this is martial law. And, that's like one of the ultimate fears of people who buy guns, is that the government's taking over. And this is like, it feels like that. It literally feels like the Handmaid's Tale, with the whole lockdown.
In one of my live, I said this is all going to be very Handmaid's Tale, even down to, the old-fashioned ways of cleaning your house with vinegar and bicarb soda and everything across. And I get the frustration, but I think where I'm finding coronavirus and the whole global pandemic interesting is we need to change the way we think about everything. So while I understand that those papers are giving people the shits, it's really important if there are directions for people to stay home and they're not obeying it, because they're jeopardizing the population. Welcome, Vicky, to our live.
Hello, Vicky. I agree with you 100%, but I don't think it should be paper. You should totally be able to fill out a PDF on your phone and use that as your proof. Why the fact they want a piece of paper, it just irks me, because like we said, there are a lot of people who don't have printers. Printers are expensive. Ink is expensive. Paper is expensive. And if you don't have it, that means you have to go and get it. So this is just more problems and more problems, because guess what? They've closed all the stores. So now if you need paper, how are you going to get paper? Unless you can find it in your grocery store, which you can't where I live. What are you going to do? So it creates more problems.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like I showed you, I sent you in a WhatsApp this morning, the article that I read this morning about France and all all the people going crazy and not following the regulations, and people getting over 500 people getting caught without their papers. The story we got here is that you don't need a printer. They've actually got rid of that requirement. I'm just trying to see if I can find that article again.
And earlier today, when I was on Twitter, just looking at the headlines as I always do, one of the people said that they had gone to a grocery store. There was police posted outside of the entrance of the grocery store. They were literally stopping everyone who was going into the grocery store. And now, keep in mind, everyone thought, okay, I could fill this PDF out on my phone and just show it that way. Why would I print it out? And the police were saying, no, you have to print it out, handwrite it, or print it out, but you have to have a piece of paper with you. And since you don't have this piece of paper, here's a ticket to go with your fine.
So, yeah, and like I said to you in our chat this morning, I think, if that's the case, if they were getting fined after the government has, if that article's correct, has dropped the printed paper requirement, then those people should have those fines waived. That would be the fair thing to do.
Yeah, the article's incorrect actually. They tonight on television on the news they said no, you must have a piece of paper. Phones
Mm.
do not count. So all these people, and keep in mind, for a lot of people, this just started on Tuesday who weren't under mandatory. I thought we were under mandatory quarantine. Apparently, it was voluntary. So from Tuesday on, it was mandatory. So for day two, a lot of people thought, okay, I'm okay. I'm literally walking into the grocery store, which is one of the things you're allowed to do. And apparently, no, because you didn't have a piece of paper that said you were doing that, you now have to pay a fine. So it just puts more strain on a lot of people. It takes money out of people's pockets and it just causes problems where there didn't need to be any problems. And it's too much like World War II with the whole show me your papers type of thing, monitoring everyone. I saw that some
Yeah,
states
but
in the
how pretty, I know you keep saying that, but you're not adjusting your way of thinking, because how else are they going to be able to monitor this without some sort of, I mean,
but,
okay, if they make it so it's on phones or whatever, but this is the whole issue. We have to shift our way of thinking. Members of the public that are infected are going out and infecting shitloads more people, and this
but
has to be nipped in the bud.
Tori, this isn't that though. This is people going into grocery stores. This is not people walking around having a jolt. This is literally people going to get food and whatever necessities they
But
need.
it's
Right
still a
now,
large gathering of people, right? So it's still possible that someone with the virus who isn't showing any symptoms and hasn't been tested can be there.
but you can't have it both ways. Either people can buy food to eat or they can't buy food to eat. You can't say, oh, there's too many people here. They can have people queue and have a social distance, but that still shouldn't stop people from going to get food. And I mean, that's what you have to do. Now, if these people were just walking around the neighborhood, by all means, I have no problem with them, giving people tickets and not following the law. But on your way to get food, literally
Yeah,
at the
so
store,
so
that's
you
not
can
right.
survive.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
Hi,
saw
hi,
also
Morgan. Hi, Serenity
and
B. Welcome.
hello,
Thank you for
Serenity
joining us.
Morgan. But I want to tell you this one thing I heard today too. In the US that they're doing, like San Francisco is doing nighttime curfews. So after a certain hour, just until a certain hour, you're not even allowed to leave the house for any reason, which I find a bit weird because if anything, if there was still a shop that was open 24 hours, I'd probably rather do my shopping at like 2 in the morning when I knew no one was going to be able to touch me or be around me. you
Yeah,
know?
although I remember in our live last night that Will the Rocker was saying that the Walmarts and everything are not 24 hours anymore. They've got limited trading hours, and even that's happening in Australia. Shops are now imposing limited trading hours. And one of the reasons they've done that is to stop all of this panic buying, because if they're open around the clock, it means people can go in and, deplete the shelves 24/7, and shops need to be able to actually restock and give people a fair chance to buy things.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think, like Amazon said, they're hiring over 150,000 people in the US because everyone is shifting to online sales. So I think that'll alleviate a lot of the in-person buying. And also, people just don't want to be around other people. I have a friend who told me
Yeah,
that they were in New York.
oh, sorry.
This is really interesting, though. I had a friend
Yeah,
who was
no,
in
we're only
New
doing
York.
it really live, and I want to make sure we get everything in, especially the headline story at some point.
Yeah, no, we will. This is just my last thing I have to say. I have a friend who was in New York who told me that they were in the hotel and there was literally only 4 people in the whole hotel. It was completely empty
Right.
in New York City.
Yeah,
That's what's happening now.
I think I saw a really interesting photo of the subway or somewhere in New York yesterday, and it was just, there wasn't one person in the photo, and it was a place that's normally filled, like the guy that I saw from Hong Kong going through the market in Hong Kong, where you normally, and this was like 2 weeks ago, but where you normally, you can barely walk, like you're kind of all wedged in there, and there are about 6 people in there.
Wait, he was in the market was still open though?
Yeah, this was a few weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
But he went through this market just to show that, normally this very crowded market was, you know, virtually empty. So we'll just do the global statistic updates because we know that there's news coming in that things have spiked overnight. There's now worldwide 218,768 cases. There's 8,944 deaths and 84,386 recovered. Now, isn't that interesting, Freddie? Because only 3 days ago when we were live on Sunday, 4 days ago, whenever it was, the figure was around the 5,000 mark. So it's almost doubled in less than a week. And the 200,000 mark that was tipped yesterday when we were live is now up to nearly 220,000 cases worldwide. Just by country, just quickly, not all of them. I'm just going to, as usual, mention the sort of ones up the top. Now, China is stable. There's no new cases in the last 24 hours. But the next biggest hit country, as we all know, is Italy. Iran, Spain, Germany. The USA has now overtaken France. South Korea, so USA, then France, then South Korea. Switzerland's now starting to spike, and the UK as well. And you keep scrolling down, and we get down to Australia, which will lead into the other story that we're going to chat about. Australia at the moment only has 596 confirmed cases, but in the last 24 hours there's been 141 new cases. We've had 6 deaths, with one new one being added in the last 24 hours. So bear in mind that figure, how it's still very low when you compare it to, say, Italy with 35,713 cases. Some of the things the Australian government is puzzling me, like the schools are still open, but it looks like in other respects drastic measures are being taken based on what we're learning from the rest of the world. And
that video we watched yesterday, it was Australian?
It was, for the ABC, for the Australian Broadcasting Commission, but it was using global data.
But because he said in that video, remember that was part of the plan as well, is to have some people infected to start creating an immunity. So maybe that's what the Australian government's following?
No, that's not the Australian government plan. He was purely talking about how herd immunity works, and that's the philosophy behind it. It wasn't saying that that's a...
I'm saying maybe that is why the schools are closed.
No, the school thing, I still feel the government's being a bit stupid with that because, I talked about that yesterday. The chief medical officer that's advising the Prime Minister thinks that at the moment they should stay open, but schools are now voluntarily closing.
Who is that person?
Scott Morrison, his name is.
And he's an infectious disease doctor or just a medical doctor?
No,
what is his
Morrison's our Prime Minister. I don't know the name of the medical dude. So I'm going to now read this article, which is the headline. Now, I'm not always going to go live with Freddie and vice versa, just talking about where we live. But because you guys follow us and you know where we live, this is interesting because, and it goes back to my comment just before about how Australia hasn't started spiking ridiculously yet, but following every other pattern of every other country of the world, it's going to. And the latest news for Tasmania is that we've been declared, Tasmania declares a state of emergency and we're shutting our borders. Now, this makes a lot of sense to me because Tasmania is an island and, there's a possibility.
Sorry, you're shutting your borders from who? From other Australians or
I'm going to read the article. I'm going to read the article. It explains that. But what I wanted to say was because we're an island, we've got 10 cases on the island at the moment. This island is potentially a place where containment could occur quite, not easily, but it's quite realistic that we may be able to contain it. So it's not surprising our government has said they're going to make this decision. So I'll just read a little bit of the article and then stop and we can chat about things that pop up. And then if we've got time at the end, we'll pop over to chat and just get some questions from there as well. Thanks for everyone in chat. It's great to have you here. We're not ignoring you. We're just doing a mini Quarantini episode. Do you like that, Freddie?
Yes, I do.
Mini Quarantini. Okay, so here we go. Tasmania has become a little version of Australia, demanding the tourists flying in from interstate self-isolate for 14 days under tough new border rules. All non-essential travellers arriving in Tasmania will be forced to quarantine for 2 weeks in coronavirus border measures, dubbed the toughest in the country. And Peter Gutwein, our Premier, has declared a state of emergency for the Apple Isle today. We're going to introduce the toughest border measures in the country. Only essential travellers will be allowed into Tasmania without going into quarantine, he told reporters. From midnight Friday, the 20th of March, so midnight tomorrow for us here in Australia, all non-essential travellers departing for Tassie will be required to quarantine for 14 days. This is a tough but necessary decision to flatten the curve. That goes back to that video we watched last night, Freddie, putting Tasmanians' health and well-being first. So basically how it's going to work is obviously, I'll keep reading the article unless you have anything to comment on just from that bit, Freddie.
No, go ahead.
Cool. So Mr. Gutwein said the quarantine period would not apply to essential travellers such as healthcare workers, emergency workers, defence personnel, air and ship crew, specialists and essential freight personnel. That includes our truck drivers that come over on boats. We've got a boat that goes between Tasmania and Victoria to deliver supplies.
That was my question.
Right.
How do you get food?
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of food here. Like, we are one of the food bowl states of Australia in that a lot of what we produce here goes to the mainland. So we're already a very
food secure.
Food secure, and we've got amazing water and all the rest of it. The restrictions do not apply to Tasmanian residents on islands such as King and Flinders Island that are flying into mainland Tasmania. So that means there's 2 little islands at the top of Tasmania that are quite heavily populated in terms of, there's about 3,000 islands in Tassie, but there are populations on King Island and Flinders who travel to Melbourne for work or, for exchanging people to be on the island, like health professionals and all of that sort of stuff. So it doesn't impact on that. And then mainland Australians flying into our islands, but then on to Tasmania. So if they fly into King Island or Flinders and then come to Tasmania, they need to be quarantined. All passengers will be screened on arrival and must demonstrate they meet the essential traveller criteria. If they're deemed non-essential, they are directed to be quarantined at their stated place of address, and people who breach the quarantine could be fined up to $16,800 and wait for this and face 6 months imprisonment. So we had 3 new cases confirmed last night, which took us to 10. So we'd been sitting on 4 for ages, 5, 6, and then last night 3 more cases, but there's no evidence of local transmission, which means they're people that have brought it into the state. So there you go. That's the update from Tassie. But what I find really interesting about it, Freddie, is because it is an island. There were talks about, I read a different article, I'm bummed I didn't have up, but the other article, there's been suggestion that Tasmania should just completely isolate from Australia. And apparently if we did that, we'd possibly be breaching the Constitution, and there could be a high court process to determine whether or not we could do that. So
that's literally what I was going to say, the breakaway province. That's always bad news when that happens.
It's not so much breakaway. It would be more that we would just sever all ties with the mainland. We would have no more flights or, people, non-essential travellers coming into the state, and we'd probably restrict trading. I don't know. I don't know what the actual point of it is, because I guess what we've imposed now is essentially from now on, or from midnight tomorrow night, if you're a non-essential traveller, you're going to be quarantined for 2 weeks. And if you breach it, a fine of nearly $17,000 and also the possibility of 6 months imprisonment. Hi, Karen. Welcome to the chat.
It's a bit hectic. But I guess, at the same time, it's essential if you're going to cut it off, before it really starts to spread.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. My brother, as you know, up until February this year was the Premier of Tasmania, and I said to him the other day, I'm so relieved for you that you're no longer Premier, because it would just be so full on. But I'm really pleased that our Premier has made this decision, and Will would have done the same thing, because, I mean, there's just the potential, I suppose, being an island is to have a fair go at isolating and not letting non-essential travellers in, and see if we can contain it. So it could be interesting. Let's jump over to chat. We've still got about 10 minutes. There's some interesting comments. I wanted to start with well, hang on. Serenity B. I'm sorry, I did see somewhere that someone's reporting their state had their first day. They must be a bit further down. So Serenity B, I heard this last week from our daughter, who's a paramedic. She said Australia will close each state. Yep, I think that's pretty likely. Do you think that will happen in the States, Freddie? Would they be able to close each state down?
But that's what I was saying, that they're already starting to do that, but it's too reminiscent of the whole martial law thing for a lot of Americans. So it becomes a very sticky situation, like you mentioned about people buying guns. I have friends who told me like they can't wait to go get bullets because the stores are sold out. So I'm just like, are you really that scared? So it makes a lot of people scared.
Which country in the world do you think is going to be the most freaked out by this? Do you think it's going to be America? Do you think America already is, or?
It depends on where you live in the US, because it is so large and every area is so different from each one. I mean, you could literally think of it as 50 mini countries. I mean, that's how different they all really truly are. Even though we all speak a common language and have a common culture, the local community culture is so different. So I think people in San Francisco aren't going to react the same as people in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is not going to act the same way as someone in Kentucky.
Yeah.
You know, so.
You're bringing up San Francisco. Morgan's comment, which is highlighted, much more easily than the 7 million in the San Francisco Bay Area. The entire island of Tassie has less people than my city. So that should be much easier to contain, hopefully. And I agree, Morgan. And I think, there's only 500,000 people on this entire island with a landmass the size of England. So it's not a heavily populated place. But it could be, I think, when things like this happen, it's islands like Tasmania where we're able to do this. Maybe there'll be data and information that can come out of this island that can help the rest of the world. Because it's interesting seeing, all the developments and it's learning from other countries. Italy's still doing such a good job at educating the world on what happens, how quickly it can go crazy.
Yeah, but I guess it does. I can understand why they said they might want to cut off Tasmania from the rest, because if you knew it was safe, you'd almost want to go back to being somewhere that's safer. But, that also means that it spreads disease. But I wanted to mention one thing about Morgan's comment is, again, about the homeless population there. So I wonder if it's going to, because how do you contain homeless people?
Well, this is the sad thing. I don't think you can, unless all these cruise ship companies that are not running anymore, maybe they will become floating accommodation for homeless. That would be a smart way to utilize all those empty boats.
No, because remember that they said that when they did that in Japan and they quarantined the people on the ship, it actually made it much worse. Much more worse.
Weren't they quarantined, though, because they were a cruise that had someone with coronavirus on it? So they were quarantined when they got back to the harbour because the disease was on the boat.
Yeah, there was only one person who had the disease. And because they quarantined the people for 2 weeks, it ended up being 600 after that.
Yeah, that's right. The Diamond Princess, 712 total cases, 7 deaths.
Oof.
Okay, so back to chat. Emily, we had our first death in Michigan today, a 50-year-old man near Detroit with underlying conditions. And on that one, that was something that was mentioned in the video last night that I'd like to reiterate. Is that, the largest age group that's being affected is actually people in their 50s, but also, like it was pointed out in that video last night, there are people dying in their 20s and 30s with no underlying conditions.
Yeah, that scared me.
Yeah.
Really.
Moving right along. Hey, everyone. I love all the chatting and sharing info. It's pretty groovy.
Yeah.
But I love how everyone gets all cute and, chatty.
Cute. Oh, well, that reminds me. Isn't that a movie? Something in the Time of Cholera.
What, cute and chatty?
There's a movie, something in cholera. But I was just when you said cute and chatty, I was just thinking cute and chatty in the time of Corona.
Well, that's us right here. Welcome, Richard. Chat. Now, just Morgan's there. They've started housing their homeless in private hotels and motels. So there you go.
That's great.
Great idea. And then further down, Emily has also said exactly the same thing. Morgan, our schools also started giving the meals they would have had for lunches to children in need as a pickup opportunity. Well, that's brilliant too. See, These are the things that I'm really loving hearing about, because I do see the positives that are coming out of this. I do see us like reminding each other to care about other people and becoming a global community. So that was it was nice to hear that from Morgan, because again, I like the feel good stuff's keeping my anxiety at bay and my mood high.
Yeah.
And I hope that,
but do you reckon it'll be the whole, because they're saying this probably can go all the way until July and August in the US. So do you think it'll stay the same, or do you think people will start to become me again?
I think that's going to happen, unfortunately. I do think that's going to happen, and I think there'll be a shift in some people's way of thinking, and they'll become a lot more selfless, and
I hope so.
They'll shift. But I think there's a lot of other people that are going to, well, you can see it already. I mean, the panic buyers who don't give a flying flip about other people. I mean, I saw a story a few days ago about how a woman whose daughter's got really bad asthma went to get the prescription filled at the pharmacy, and they didn't have the stuff she needed in stock. But then she said, well, when you don't have it in stock, I usually get this one off the shelf, and they're like, it's all gone. All these people that don't have asthma have stocked up on Ventolin and puffers, and because they believe it's a respiratory illness, it'll make them better. And then
how do they get it without a prescription?
Because there's two types. There's a prescription one, but there's also like an over-the-counter one. So, yeah, isn't that disgusting? And so those people, the people that don't have asthma, who've depleted the shops of Ventolin and other asthma products, those people are the ones that are going to rise up and be revolting, I think. But I'd like to think some people will also have a think about the rest of the world and how their behaviour impacts on other people and become a lot, like I said, a lot more selfless.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I was looking at the US's $500 billion stimulus package, and listed in that package was 13 immigration centers for migrants to help control the outbreak, which I just think is just an awful way to slip that in there to make someone rich again. Because in a time like this, to house those people in those detention centers, which are pretty much just prisons, was $650 to $1,000 a day. So that's going to be a huge chunk of money going to something that didn't need to happen.
Yeah. Just some live headlines as I've just refreshed. Qantas in Australia is standing down the majority of their staff. Italy has recorded 475 deaths in a day, and schools are being shut down in the UK. Just a few more comments in chat. Richard, games night was fun, although I doxed Freddie and we also got a copyright infringement for playing Gloria Gaynor. And we decided the games are too hard. So from now on, we're going to be doing craft night, and we'll be doing crafts and giving each other craft tips while we have chats and giggles as usual.
Or as Tori likes to call it, crap.
Exactly. Emily, hope others dig deep in their pocket and help out. I agree, Emily. I think if people have got the capacity to help out financially as well, that would be nice to see. It's not like people are going to be able to go on holidays or spend money beyond the provisions they need at home, right? So,
but I think that the biggest way people can help is just to have more empathy. That's would be a major shift.
And that's what I mean by being, more selfless, like having empathy, because you're aware that there are people that have got it worse off than you. But, you know, look at how much coronavirus has spread when people were told not to go out because they've been tested positive and they've gone out anyway. You know, there's unfortunately always going to be a percentage of the population that don't give a fuck about anyone else but themselves. And I don't think that's going to change. More puffers for Morgan. I hope you don't have the same issue for your little guy either. Karen doesn't think people in the US are going to react well. I'm a bit scared about people lining up to buy guns. And like you were just saying, Freddie, your friend's excited about buying bullets. I hope it doesn't. I hope people's levels of fear don't get to that point that they think going around with guns is going to fix things.
Oh, no, that's to stay at home during quarantine because like someone said yesterday in chat that they were worried about looters and people robbing. I mean, unfortunately, it's a lot of fear.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that unravels here because, as you know, we've got very strict gun control. Not everyone's got guns, so it could be interesting to see. Emily loves the craft idea. She's going to pour paint while we craft and listen. So, yeah, we're going to come up with little things each time we do a show, little things that we can be doing to keep ourselves entertained and see what you guys are all doing as well. Morgan's comment, I read that article too, that they're letting out prisoners that are low offenders. I can't remember what the term was for it, but minor, you know, they're in prison for minor offences and they are releasing them because of the fear of coronavirus outbreaks.
Yeah, I can imagine the breeding ground that a prison would be for coronavirus. It'll just ravage.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of cynics out there would say put it in the prisons and just wipe them all out, unfortunately. I suspect that there'll be that kind of attitude roaming around. Karen, thank you so much. We love that we are a little place for you guys to come for. I mean, we do give you information, but also to just keep you entertained and informed. But it's really lovely having you with us. We're all becoming an online global community as well. And there are a lot of channels out there talking about coronavirus, but Freddie and I want to make sure that we try to laugh as much as we can along the way. You know, we're all in this together, right?
This is true.
So there's a few more.
And if you
comments.
haven't clicked like and subscribed, you can as well.
Exactly. Please hit that like button for us. We're only 3 subs away from 700, and we would love to be at 700 by Sunday. Yeah. So please tell your friends about us. If there are people in your lives that are starting to discover the world of YouTube, please do let them know because we would like to be a positive, happy place. And like Emily says, calm in the storm. And so these are suggestions for them. We can also have online chats to boost mental health, which is imperative during so much isolation, ways to cope. And that's another great idea.
That is true.
In fact, that's probably worthy of a show just on that topic.
Very true.
Yeah. So we'll just wrap up now. Freddie, what's the rest of your day like? You're heading to bed soon, aren't you?
Yes, I'm going to go back to watching my Korean marketplace ramen noodles, where you can have people make you what are those called? Packaged ramen noodles, and you pay them, and it looks so interesting. And I don't know why I've spent the last hour laying in bed watching that.
Yeah, I like watching cooking shows, and we'll be doing some cooking as well. We're going to do some like quarantine cooking videos of little meals that you can make with things out of your pantry. That's going to be great fun. Yeah. But we're also, when we go live from the kitchen, it's possible Freddie or myself, one of us is actually going to be cooking when we go live, and the other one will sort of keep an eye on chat and run the show basically. But just to have a bit of fun, keep each other company while we're cooking dinner. Hey, Spacey, welcome.
Hey, Spacey.
We're about to wrap up, but thank you for joining us. This was just a little quick one to announce that Tasmania has declared a state of emergency. And I meant to explain that the article that I originally read was way better than the one that I read just before. A state of emergency essentially gives the Commissioner of Police power to bring in restrictions. So things like only letting, essential travellers in and the non-essential travellers having to go into quarantine, and how that's all monitored and everything, that all falls on the police department. So essentially by declaring a state of emergency, it's empowering our Commissioner of Police to make decisions and laws, if necessary.
Yeah. And
shot of whiskey there, Freddie, says Richard. You look like you do look like you could be heading off to an Irish pub in that lovely outfit you've got on in your picture.
Oh, well, thank you. That's called fashion.
Space Monster thinks he's done it well. No, it's just very late at night. He's just got the late at night voice, whereas I've got the middle of the day voice. Quick wrap up for Karen. She'd like to know how things are in France, and don't forget to include a Kitty P. Carmen update.
Okay. Well, today at noon on the news, people were still shopping in the markets. The outdoor markets. People were buying food that way and in close proximity. So I think those are probably going to be shut down as well soon. And it just seems like not a lot of people are respecting the quarantine. Like, really, it's been a trending topic on Twitter for France the whole day, like literally either one or two. Because
do you think the French are just a little bit too arrogant? What do you think's behind this? Or is it more defined?
It's a bit of both, it seems like, from what I read, but it's also just people also just trying to get food because a lot of the shelves were empty as well. And then, people are criticizing other people for saying they're buying too much. It's back and forth. But in general, French people aren't really hoarders or, gluttons when it comes to food. I mean, they're very, reserved when it comes to that. Like, you don't even really use a shopping cart when you go to the grocery store. Like, they really just have the small little caddy, and they're like, okay, a slice of ham and a cup of, soup.
Yeah, like you were saying when I was telling you how I love eating all the fresh and local produce, and you were saying, oh, you're so French, because I just buy fresh per day, and that was the thing I've accepted. If we all get locked down here, is at some point the fresh food's going to run out in my fridge, and that's probably causing me not concern, but I'm just sad to think that, into week 2 or 3, I might not be able to eat lettuce anymore. That makes me sad.
But you can grow it. It's so easy to grow.
Hello,
Twiggy.
So we're not
Thanks for subscribing.
Huh? What was that?
New subscriber.
Woo! How exciting. Thank you. And welcome to our little channel of love and happiness.
Our
Twiggy,
little corner of the world.
Clare Bear.
Yes.
Respecting the social distancing. Hi, Clare Bear. I can't see where. Yes. Oh, new subbers, Twiggy. Welcome. That's so exciting, Twiggy. Lovely to have you here, and also good to see you, Clare Bear. Not wise to ignore quarantine. Look, about the lettuce, yes, I know we can grow it, but the reality is it'll take more than 2 weeks for me to grow the lettuce before I've got lettuce again. But it's not a big deal. I just love fresh food, so we will cope. I'm not going to have a tantrum about it. I'm prepared. I've got plenty of stuff in my pantry, but I will. I think it's on what I'm going to miss. It'll go as number 1 on what I'm going to miss list.
Actually, you could grow that in a week. You could grow those flats, and use you'll have the baby lettuce. So you can grow a couple of flats and just rotate them out. Get 4 of them and you have 1 a week, cut what you use and it'll just regrow.
Yeah. Well, I've got it. Like I said to you, I did stock up on potting mix because I thought, doing some gardening out on the deck will be a way to keep me active and busy. May even go live from the deck one day doing some gardening. Micro veggies are the way to go. Good comment.
I want to see those birds.
Huh?
Yeah.
The birds on my deck.
I said, I want to see the birds on your deck. You always have the most beautiful birds there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't it be lovely if I'm out there gardening and some of them, because they're not scared of me as long as I'm not running towards them. They hang out with me. So you'll get to see some rosellas, galahs, and probably some of our sulfur-crested cockatoos, the big white ones. So just wrapping up, I'll give a quick update on the global statistics again, because we do provide some information on top of all the silliness and fun. 218,768 cases of coronavirus worldwide. 8,944 deaths. Now, that blows my mind, Freddie, because on Sunday it was 5,000 and something. So it's basically doubled in 4 days. And 84,386 have recovered. No new cases in China. Italy is they've spiked with over 4,000 new cases just in the last 24 hours and another 475 deaths. So sending out my love to Italy. They've really been hit so hard, and we can all learn from how they've been managing it and what they're doing. But I loved the guy on Twitter that said, don't sit back and go, this isn't going to happen to us, because we were all like that 3 weeks ago, and look at us now. Iran, Spain, Germany, USA is now ahead of France. USA with just overnight, just under 3,000 new cases and 42 new deaths, and currently there's 9,269 confirmed cases. I remember when the US was 500, which is where Australia is now. We're nearly at 600, 596 with one new death. Only 6 deaths so far in Australia, but 141 new cases overnight. So, yeah, it's a happening. It's a pretty interesting time for all of us. And like we said earlier in this live, this is an opportunity for us to accept we're all in this together. Empathy is definitely the way forward. Space Monster has suggested I eat the birds. Claire, if you're self-isolating, Freddie, or if are the French streets quiet, we can keep going for a little bit longer, another 4 minutes, and then we'll end this.
Okay.
Oh, the latest,
the whole country is under mandatory quarantine right now, and if people keep ignoring it, it'll probably get much worse. The quarantine goes. I guess the both.
Yeah. I thought we only had 10 cases, Twiggy, but it sounds like maybe we've just announced a new one, perhaps. The article I was reading is a couple of hours old now, but there was 10 earlier today, so it sounds like we've got another one. Oh, sorry. And we're never playing Gloria Gaynor or washing her hands again. We got a copyright infringement for that. But great to have everyone here. Thanks for joining us in chat. Also, thank you to anyone who watches the replay. If you get to this part, make sure you hit the like button on the way out. And Freddie, I guess, as always, if something breaks that is of note, we'll go live with it. But, of course, we've got our show scheduled for Sunday in Australia, Sunday morning, and Saturday night. I'll be asleep in the States. And 1 a.m. People think you're down, Freddie. They don't realise it's late. It's, what is it, 2, 3 in the morning? What time is it for you, Freddie?
Yeah. It's 2:30 in the morning.
What time is it? Yeah. So he sounds like someone who's awake.
2:39 a.m.
He's good. Little update from Biscuit. She's been very smoochy and is getting the zoomies. I just don't. Speaking about things that I don't want to happen, I just don't want to run out of cat food for her, even though she can start eating the food that I eat as well. That would be awful because she loves her food. Is that the same with Kitty P. Carmen, or is Kitty P. Carmen self-sufficient and eating mice and things? We may have lost Freddie.
She does both, actually. She likes to bring me lots of little vermin, and I watch her hunt from the fields, and I'm always like, Kitty P, stop being bad. And then she eat food. Like, if I don't give her food, she goes crazy.
People might eat vermin too. People may have to resort to hunting and killing vermin for survival. Yeah. Well, I think we're wrapping it up anyway, but thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Welcome to our new subscriber, Twiggy. It's lovely having you all here. And, enjoy your
Ratatouille.
Exactly. Well, you know what? Did you ever see MasterChef? Did you get MasterChef Rats? Because I always used to say if they want to really challenge the cooks on MasterChef, they should make them do confit rat. It could come true. Roadkill. Yep, all of that good stuff.
No, I don't.
So on that note, thanks everyone. Sweet dreams, beautiful Freddie. Love you heaps.
Yeah.
I think the Wi-Fi in
Soon.
France
Bye.
is falling apart. Love you. Bye.